converted man here. Yet another person wants to know what it would take for atheists to believe, even though that information seems to be easily found out there. But, I don't know, whatever, Okay, so this guy here, Cornelius Jones, asked the question, and, I said, hey, you want to talk to me about this? I could do a mini interview of you. Let me know. But until he does that, one way or the other, I thought I'll cover his video anyways. See what he has to say. Let's check it out.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Cornelius Jones, and I'm back, but this time got a different subject. That's right, we are going to have a conversation today with our atheists, people who period of time watch my videos from time to time, and these people believe that there is no God. Those of you
Uh-oh, gotta stop you right there. Sometimes. Now, see, this is a common thing. This just, I don't know why this keeps happening with the word atheist. Look. It really, um, it's really not that hard, okay? Look, you just go, you look at Google, and you type in atheist definition, right? And it's just like it's right there, Okay, it's just a person who disbelieves or lacks belief in the existence of God or a God. So there you go. That wasn't that hard. How does this keep getting wrong? I don't know. Whatever.
out there, if you do not believe that God exists, that there is enough evidence to believe in a God or whatever, this is a video for you because I have a profound question. It is a very simple question. I believe it is a fair question. And I would like to have some conversations in the inbox, in the threads. I'm even at this point. I'd like to email whatever. Want to have some conversation with some of you. Want to ask a very simple question: what would it take for you to believe? That's the question.
Okay. Very simple answer is the same thing I have for everything else. The same way that I can believe in anything and everything else, and I don't even know the word belief is appropriate. But at any rate, empirical evidence, repeatable tests, and or a valid and sound argument. So that's it. I need to be able to see it, visualize it in some way. I need to be able to test it in some way, or at least I need some sort of valid and sound argument that would compel me to look into the matter further. And Carl Edwards says evidence. Yes. Let's see. The word evidence. I try to add empirical evidence. I always say empirical evidence, or try to always say empirical evidence, because evidence by itself. Well, what do you mean by that? And people go into personal experience. It's like, well, I don't know that's not what I'm talking about when I mean evidence. So rather than have that whole conversation, I say empirical evidence, visible, testable, something tangible. And this is echoed in the comments as well on this video. Many people have already said, that they want that sort of evidence. It's extraordinarily unreasonable that an entity would not be visible like everything else is visible, especially if this entity cares about all humanity and also has the ability to show itself to all of humanity. It's just, once you start piling on the added ingredients, if you will, to God, you make the entity less and less reasonable to think it is a thing at all, because it's simply not coherent to think that an entity would not be obvious to everyone all at the same time. Um, and I just think that that's kind of a giveaway. Plus, all different gods are framed differently. Which god are you referring to? What do you mean by God? So I don't know what you mean, but it's like, well, what would it take you to believe in X? Well, the same thing that I require for everything else. And I don't get to choose what I believe or not believe in. So, you can't just decide that I'm a lobster. Now, maybe if you convince yourself, somehow over time you could do it. I don't know that you could. Probably a bad idea to try, but maybe you could convince yourself I'm a lobster if you just kept saying I'm a lobster over and over again. And maybe it would take some years and some psychological, torture to do it, but maybe you could, but more than likely not. And definitely you couldn't just snap your fingers and do it. So that's the case for you as well. So what would it take for you to stop believing? And that's a fair question for you to answer. If the answer is nothing, if there's nothing that would cause you to not believe anymore, then I think that's a problem. But another way to think about this would be, what would it take for you to believe in a different version of God? And the answer to that might be something that you want to see if your God has as well, or if they claim their God has it, then see if they do. Investigate that God as well. So, anyways, back to the thing. See what else you have to say.
What would it take for you to believe? It is my concern that for some of you, there's no amount of evidence that will be reasonable enough for you to believe that God exists. Enough for you to believe that Jesus Christ, more specifically, rose again from the dead.
Well, um, there's no way for me to know that Jesus rose from the dead without that being an event that happens today. Um, Simply put, in the past, people had all sorts of different ideas of things that could happen, and they wrote down those ideas, and they had many beliefs about many things. There's all sorts of stories about dying and rising gods. There's one that's uh, more spectacular than Jesus, where this deity is cut up into pieces, and they spread the pieces around the world, and eventually the pieces come back together and reforms, and it's alive, and they're alive again. That's more exciting than, oh, you died and came back, all right, whatever. Look what this guy did over here. So I asked this question. I said, look, let's say that you witnessed something that's extraordinary. You've never seen it before in your entire life, and it's a one-time event. You're never going to see it again. And the only way you have to document it is writing. Is there a way that you could write in such a way that would prove that that event happened to future people? And I think the answer is no, because because of the nature of the claim. When it's a non-mundane claim, we're going to want more than just writing to prove that it happened. We're going to need more evidence than that. And this is definitely a non-mundane claim. We've never seen any human be able to undergo the sort of death that Jesus did and then come back to life. Now, we have records and stories and such of people that were thought to be dead but weren't really dead and recovered. Some of those were in hospitals, others were in other places, and mistakes can be made. The story about the death of Jesus outlines several things that are supposed to indicate that Jesus is actually dead. They poke him in the side with a spear, and water comes out, which means water was in his lungs, which is pretty much a sign you're dead. Plus, I don't think getting poked in the side with a spear would help you if you weren't already dead. I think that would probably finish the job. plus being crucified, you're strangled to death. So the guy's dead, and that's what you're supposed to get from that story, is like he's really for real dead. And then when they find there's no body, they're like, what's going on? Then they're told he's alive. Of course, in other stories they're not told he's alive. In other stories they're told not to tell anybody about what they saw. And then it just depends which gospel you read. But at any rate, eventually the disciples see Jesus, although at first they don't recognize Jesus, which is kind of odd. Like, why wouldn't they recognize him? Maybe he wasn't really Jesus. Maybe he was just saying that he was Jesus. Couldn't that be possible? He's like, oh, look, I have holes in me, right? He tells, in one story, he tells the only doubter that's in the group, Thomas, who's, I think, just an invention. I think the whole story is made up. But at any rate, he's like, poke my holes. Like, okay, like, you could make holes in you. That's not impossible to do. So if you wanted to pretend to be Jesus back from the dead, you could put holes in you, couldn't you? So, I mean, it's not impossible to fake this. But anyways, my answer is that Jesus would have to be here in the modern day era and have lots of scientists observing Jesus with cameras and other equipment of all sorts of, monitoring his heart and his brain waves, and he'd have to be in a sealed room, that's protected by guards, and there has to be controlled conditions. And we watch as he dies on the table, and he's, they look, and he's dead. His heart stopped. His brain's not doing anything, and his body's cold, and maybe he even starts to decay a little bit. And then we watch for the next 2 to 3 days, depending on which gospel is right. And then all of a sudden, at some point, he either immediately gets okay, or maybe it's slow process, that he gets up and walks around and is alive again. I don't know how it works, but then they'd be like, okay, now we verified that it actually happened. Shorter than that of evidence, I could not just believe that the story happened with writing alone. That's not going to do it. As a hearsay, verbal testimony, that's not good enough. It's going to need to be an empirically investigatable phenomenon that is studyable by science. And apparently, God's not going to do that for whatever reason. But that's my answer.
And proved himself to be God. But that can be proven wrong. You can prove me wrong. You can prove me wrong. Not that you have the desire to prove me wrong or would care to prove me wrong, but it is a factual statement that if you chose to, you could prove me wrong. And why do I say that? Because my purpose for coming on here today is to tell you about an event that many believe is in our near future. What I
This is gonna get really wacky, or really. Let's find out. But okay. All right. If you're gonna make a prediction, it has to be very specific. You have to a date, a specific date and time and location, and things that can't be contrived. Okay? So the problem with so-called prophecy is they're vague, they're not time specific, they're left open to interpretation. And as far as the Bible goes, there's just a few prophecies that failed. There has to be a condition that the prophecy can and will fail, and it has to be clear. It can just be, and it can't be unextraordinary. Tomorrow it will be bright outside, well, or it will rain, or whatever. It has to be very specific. And if you're using the Book of Revelation to try to intuit what the future holds, everybody has tried to do this. and everybody has failed. Well, everybody, of course, not everybody, but lots of people, I should say, undo everybody. Okay. Lots of people have tried to say what's going to happen and have said the end is near, yada, yada, yada. They've all been wrong every single time. The book of Revelation, as far as I can tell, is about King Nero. And that's it. That's what it's about. Now, not everybody thinks that is what it's about, granted. That's just what I think it's about. I think there's a good argument to be made that it's symbolic language and that the reason it's in the Bible is because it's a good ending to the story. That's why it's in there. But, okay, let's hear what you have to say.
I can guarantee is that this event will take place. I cannot guarantee when, although many people, even top scholars of today, agree that this time is near.
What top scholars? Do you have a list of the scholars? Who are they? I mean, I can say that about anything. Who? Who are you talking about? Just, don't just say, well, top scientists agree. Which ones? Names? Citations? Do you have any citations in the description? No. Okay. Press X to doubt. X in chat. No, press F to doubt. F is doubt in chat. Doubt hard. Don't doubt in the comments. Doubt all the time. No, I don't believe you that top scholars anything with this because you didn't provide that proof. But anyways, okay, go ahead. Oh, and you don't know what time it's going to happen. So it could be any time. It could be we could all die and not see this happen. That's another problem. So is it going to be within our lifetime? All right. What is it? What is it? Tell us what it is.
For this particular event that I'm about to tell you about, God is going to send two prophets. Two prophets.
Here it is.
Preach the gospel of Jesus Christ on this earth with magnificent fashion. They are going to prophesy, they are going to preach, they are going to witness the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and they are going to be troublesome to the world.
Okay. Yeah, right.
The world is not going to receive these two prophets. These two prophets will be sent by God, and many will try to harm these two men. And they will have power to defend themselves in ways that are unlike anything we've ever known before.
Okay, so yeah, you're just talking about what happens in the book of Revelation, and it's not going to happen ever. Period. End of story. Now, I have no doubt that people could attempt to do it, that a couple of charismatic guys might attempt to make this come true and go around and preach and try to stir trouble and get attention and names for themselves, and that many Christians might actually believe that this is it and, fund them and protect them, etc. And, maybe there will be attacks, quote unquote, but maybe, of course, there'll be staged attacks, or maybe there'll be some real attacks. I don't know. But, I have no doubt that somebody could, fake that. And I also don't have any doubt that some Christians would try to work towards an ending of the world, believing that they're doing God's deed, which is pretty scary to contemplate. There was a cult that got pretty darn powerful. I want to think now. I can't remember if it was China or somewhere else, but regardless, I'll remember what the bleep I'm talking about later and put it in the description if you're for the full story. But at any rate, the guy got really powerful and popular and well funded, and he had like a biotoxin that would kill a ton of people that he was going to put out and blame it. I think it was Korea. I think it was South Korea that this happened now. He blame it on North Korea so that they go to super war and, wind up, everybody would be obliterated and that would be the end of the world. Well, it'd be the end of the world for humans. And he was really, really close to completing it, but he was caught, just like in the nick of time. It'd make a great movie. But at any rate, I have no doubt that a couple people could go about and attempt to do this, because people know the story and people can mimic what the story says. So this makes it a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. Now, they're not going to have any powers, because that's not how reality functions. They won't have any magical abilities. They won't have psychic powers. Those things aren't real. Those are fictional. They exist in stories. There is no real X-Men. There are no real uh, superheroes. It'd be cool if there are. There's limits. There's limits within physics, and there's limits within biology. And maybe you could genetically engineer somebody so that they could glow in the dark, camouflage like a chameleon, produce bioelectric stuff or whatever. But you couldn't get them to float. That's just not a thing that you can do with biology. It's just not you couldn't get them to float in the air. You couldn't get them to be able to control the weather. That you couldn't have them read minds. It's not. These are not things within the limits of biology. Maybe you could do something technical. If you implanted a chip in somebody's brain and implanted another chip in someone's brain, they could maybe access that chip to read their mind that way. But there's limits, okay? Now, I know that this is not going to happen. Absolutely. It's not going to happen in your lifetime. Not going to happen in my lifetime. It's not going to happen, period, ever. And I say that with assurance because the laws of physics and the laws of biology are what they are, and they will not change. They have not changed, and it's just not going to happen. Sorry, it's not. So here's the problem. You've said this will happen, but you've given no time period for us to expect when it will happen, which makes this claim completely and wholly irrelevant in full. I can make another claim, and I will. And this is a claim that I will make, and I'll see if you want to go through with it. So, okay, here's my claim. You can live for as long as you want in perfect health, but you have to perform a certain task to be able to gain this ability. So what you have to do is go out at night in your front yard in your underpants. By the way, the underpants have to have hearts on them. It's very important. And you have to film yourself singing I'm a Little Teapot as you spin around counterclockwise 3 times. And if you do that and you send me that video, then you will live as long as you want in perfect health. Guaranteed. Now, what do you have to lose in trying this? Just try it. Just do it. What is there really to lose? A few minutes of your time, maybe a little bit of dignity. So, will you do this task? Yes or no? That's my question to this guy and everybody and everybody else. And I'm waiting for my videos, darn it. And I might release them on YouTube if I get them, depending on well, I mean, I don't know, depending, I don't know, maybe I'll keep them for my, I don't know what I'll do if anyone actually does it. Nobody's done it so far, but how would you, let's say that you did do it, okay? Now you go, okay, I'm going to have perfect health. Well, the moment you don't have perfect health, you know it was a fraud. But all the way up until then, how would you know? And if you do live in perfect health, well, one day you're not going to be because you're going to die somehow, right? And you're like, well, once you're dead, you can't be like, well, you were wrong because you're dead. So there's no way to falsify the claim that I have made, and that's a problem. So without a time frame, this claim is utterly useless. Plus, I just know it's not going to happen because it defies everything we know. And also, Revelation is more than likely about King Nero. So,
Fire. sending plagues to the earth, ceasing the rain, holding the rain until and letting it won't rain again until I say it can rain. Things like that. Where it's obvious that the power of God is on these two prophets and they are preaching the truth of Jesus Christ, and it is eating the people alive because they refuse to believe. And they're being tormented by these prophets.
Why would people not believe? Now this is the funky part of the story that makes no sense. So they have these abilities and powers or whatever, right? Yet there's people that don't believe them. They're aware that Revelation is a story. They're like, hey, this is exactly what the story said would happen, and it's happening. But there's people that don't believe. I don't know about that. Maybe there'd be a few, but I don't think they'd be in quite the numbers that you would think that they would be. There's always going to be a handful of people that believe in weird things no matter how much evidence you have, right? But in this case, I think you'd have overwhelming evidence. Now, if these people were there and they had these powers, would they would they get on, and go prove it like under scientific scrutiny? And if not, why not? Because again, two people could put on a relatively convincing show. They could make it look like they had powers, and people might believe it. And, so if they had special effects and stuntmen and, a lot of budget, maybe, maybe they could do it even live. I mean, magicians perform all sorts of different illusions live. So, could they convincingly pull off something? Maybe. They say it's going to rain here and only here, and all of a sudden it starts raining. But of course, there's a water machine that nobody knows about, sprinkling everybody with water, right? So, would they be able to perform their magical deeds under controlled conditions? And if not, then there's all the reason to doubt that they're legitimate. So, what's not in this story, and it is just a story, is that these people subjected themselves to scientific testing, because when the story was written, that wasn't really a thing that happened. There wasn't really that sort of scientific testing. There was very rudimentary science, if you could even call it science, back in those days whenever it was written. So if they were performing things that looked like they weren't real, then yeah, people would doubt it. And if they were unwilling to be tested under scientific investigations, then yes, people would probably doubt them. But if they were legitimate and actually had abilities, there's no reason why they wouldn't undergo scientific testing to prove that those abilities are real.
Well, these prophets are going to meet their end, seemingly, to the world. Because the world leader, this up and coming world leader of this day, whatever day where these
Uh
prophets are
huh.
speaking on the earth, this new up and coming world leader is going to rise to power and kill these two prophets.
And that will be me. Vote for me. I will kill the two prophets. So let's get it going, people. Come on. Let's get a couple people out there to be fake prophets or real prophets and do this. I vote me in, and I will have them killed. Give me all the power. So silly. It's not gonna happen. It's just a story. Oh, whatever. Okay. Okay, you've asked your question. Now you're no longer asking a question. You're just saying things that you think are true without any way to falsify it. And it's like, why? I don't care. Prove any of this is real. Where's your proof? You don't have any. So why? Why should I believe that any of this is ever going to happen at all? Period. And there's no reason for me to believe it. Not even a little. So get to the point.
And the world is going to follow. And the world is going to celebrate. The world is going to send gifts to one another. It's going to be a world thing. The world is going to celebrate the death of these prophets They will not even be allowed to be put in graves because their bodies will lay in the street for the world to see. And they will mock the prophets and they will celebrate the seeming victory.
Why?
Three.
Why would people do this? Because certainly Christians wouldn't do that. It's completely, the story cannot function in the society that we have today. It can't. Just look at Ukraine. What's going on in Ukraine, right? Russia and Ukraine. There's people that are saying, hey, look, Russia has reasons to go after Ukraine. And there's people saying that Ukraine has every right to defend themselves. Like, yeah, they do have every right to defend themselves. Did they do something that provoked it? I don't know. Did they deserve what's going on? No, I don't. I think that there's better ways to handle it than war, but I'm not in charge. But the point that I'm making is people are split. Some people are like, hey, there's nuance here. Not nobody is innocent here. There's people that say, no, they're completely innocent. Ukraine's completely innocent. Russia's completely guilty. Then there's people on the other side of that that say the reverse, and everything in between. So people don't agree on this subject, right? So that is a situation that is known pretty much all over the world. Broadly speaking, there's probably some places that don't know anything about what's going on. Okay. And yet the world cannot agree upon this thing. Having the book that tells us this story and seeing it unfold in real time, why would people celebrate the death of these two guys? And it's supposed to be two men, by the way. Why? Why would everyone celebrate that? Why would the world celebrate that and send gifts to each other? Why? How would that function when we can't even agree on this other issue? We can't agree to this thing. Heck, forget about the war thing. There's people that believe the world's flat out there. So when that sort of nonsense exists, you can't get people to agree with reality, let alone agree that it's good that somebody is dead. When Saddam Hussein got killed, there was a person, I remember this, had made a video like, it's a shame that they died because like they didn't go on trial, we didn't get any of that, and we should have, there had to be a different way than just kill the guy. So it's like, yeah. And like you could go back in time with Hitler and say it would have been better to capture Hitler alive and have him put on trial. Now, would the world have wanted him killed? I don't know. Maybe some would, maybe some wouldn't. But it's very hard to get a large group of people to agree on anything. Yet, we're supposed to believe that with the knowledge of the Bible that's widespread in the world, seeing the events unfold in real time, that people would be like, yeah, screw those people that were doing those magical things. I'm glad they're dead. We send presents to it. No, it's not going to happen. It's unrealistic. It's just not a thing that would happen. There would be Christians up in arms. Catholics would be up in arms. Some non-Christians would probably join in. I would if I was there. I'm like, hey, everyone, this is real. What's going on? Stop it. I wouldn't be celebrating, and I'm part of the world. So I'm not sending a present to somebody else. So then I'm the counter example in this story. And so there is another problem of the story is, what does it mean for the world to send each other presents? How many people have to send each other presents for this to count? How is the story going to be negated? In other words, if I don't send presents to anybody, does that negate the story? If my friend doesn't send presents to anybody, does that negate the story? How many people have to not send presents to negate the story? And then we'll just be like, hey, look, we're going to convince a lot of people to not send presents to each other. I don't think people would celebrate the death of two people like this, no matter how obnoxious and annoying they are. Some would, but not everyone, and certainly not worldwide. But you have to be more coherent with what you mean. But you're not being that because the book isn't written. The story, I shouldn't say book because it's one, it's one story. But the story is not written to be precise. It's written to be vague.
3.5 days, these men of God are going to lay dead in the street, and on that, after 3.5 days, they're going to jump to their feet. They are going to be resurrected. The irony of this is they were killed. They're going to be killed, rather, in the exact same spot where Jesus was crucified.
And we don't know where that spot is. Now, there are claims made about where that spot is, and because it's just a huge tourist destination now, they will take you on where Jesus walked along, and this is probably where he was crucified. But they don't know. They have no idea. We don't know. We do not have a clue where Jesus was crucified. So there'd be no way to know that they were at that location. And also, hey, look, we know what's going to happen, right? So these two guys are being a real pain in the butt. Why would we leave them out? Their bodies are going to just be left out there to rot. Like, why? Like, why wouldn't we, I don't know, burn them? Burn them up. Then there's nothing left of them. Let's see them come back from that. The story works if their bodies are there to pop back up from the dead. So what if they're burned, right? These two guys, they come along, they do everything you say, but they get burned up, and you're like, oh, they're going to come back. And then like 3 days pass and nothing happens. You're like, but they're going to come back. And 4 days pass, 5 days pass. We're like, yeah, we burned them. They're not coming back. I'm like, well, eventually they'll come back, right? You'd have another unfalsifiable claim. And you do it to save the story because you want the story to be true. I just don't think that, it's really hard to believe that you're interested in what non-believers or non-Christians have to say because you're just preaching revelation. And I just, it's like, yeah, what? Come on. Your question was decent, but then you're doing this. Like, why? What's the point? What point are you trying to make? Are you going to ask, like, oh, all this stuff happens? Would that convince you? It depends. If those guys were willing to undergo scientific testing, then I would believe that they had powers. If not, then no, I'm going to doubt them. But if and when they're killed, I'm going to try to get their bodies burned just to mess with the story. And also, I'm not going to celebrate it. And also, I'm not going to send presents to anybody. So I'm negating the story because I'm stubborn. Now what? Well, whatever. Keep going.
In the exact same spot Jesus was crucified, in the exact same spot where Jesus rose, these prophets are going to die. The same place. You don't think that's a coincidence, huh? These prophets that are prophesying the truth about the life of Christ in his resurrection will be overcome. They will die, lay dead 3.5 days, and be resurrected. As if that's not enough, the entire world will hear a voice from heaven say, come up here. And the two prophets will ascend to heaven before their enemies' eyes. In the same hour, there's going to be an earthquake where 1/10
nice.
of the city of Jerusalem is going
Yeah,
to be
I'm going to
destroyed.
just fast forward. I don't care anymore.
Now, my question to you is,
Yeah.
if you see these things happening,
Uh-huh.
will you remember this video?
Yeah. I hope. I mean, unless my
When
brain
you
goes in there.
see a resurrection for yourself,
Right.
if you are one of
Well,
those,
wait a minute. Wait a minute. I would be there, so it wouldn't. I mean, would it be broadcast on television? It's interesting that it doesn't mention like that this is going to be in television, like broadcast or anything. Is it going to be on the net? Like, how am I going to see it? Like, talking about Judea, right? Like, is travel going to be allowed there? I mean, I don't know. I mean, whatever.
men
Just
or women who are celebrating the death of
uh,
these prophets,
yeah.
and you see them die and you
Hmm.
see them raise,
Uh-huh.
if you see a resurrection with your own eyes, is that enough?
No, unless it was under controlled scientific conditions, because it could be fake. And that's the easiest way to do this, is to fake the whole thing. That would be really easy, quote unquote. It would be, you know, quite a feat to pull off and take some money and cooperation. But it could be done. It's within the realm of possibility to fake all of this. Two people that are really charismatic, tasked with going around the world preaching things, and a crew follows them to document, but also to secretly plant things that go off that make it look like they're able to do supernatural stuff. They have some sort of device that shakes a house. They have a rain making machine. They have plants in the crowd that claim that they see something so that other people start to think that they see something. It's remarkably easy to get people to go along with stuff. You get like 5 people together and you have them all say, "Oh, look, we saw this thing." And then everybody's seeing that thing, even though there was no thing for them to see. We know that it would be remarkably easy to fake this if somebody was dedicated enough to do so. And then you watch them die somewhere, and you're told it's where Jesus died, and because we don't know exactly where that is, it could be anywhere, and you see it in video, you see it on television, but you're not there. And even if you were there, you don't get to go up to it because there's guards preventing you from going to that scene because they're supposed to be killed, and that's how it's supposed to play out, and you're not allowed to interfere, and you're not allowed to test the bodies, you're not allowed to examine what's going on because they don't want you messing with it, and they don't want anyone messing with it because that would reveal that it's all not real. And then they quote unquote come back to life. And I go, that's nice. Why wouldn't you let us test any of this? And I would say, hey, I think that this is all a bunch of BS and hogwash. And I think a lot of people would as well. But maybe enough people with uncritical minds would believe in it. And that's a scary thought. And it's not impossible to pull off with enough money and resources. So it wouldn't cause me to believe because I would think it's a hoax. And everything that we know about biology and physics suggests that it being a hoax is far more greater than it not being a hoax. So, if they wanted to convince people that this was real, okay, get the guys killed, then let's move their bodies into a scientifically sealed room where we can observe them and plug in monitors to make sure that they're actually dead. And I don't know, it's just for kicks. Let's decapitate them just for fun and see, put their heads on a shelf to see if their heads are able to reattach to their bodies. If we don't care what happens to these guys, why not? Well, because it's not in the story. That's why it wouldn't happen that way, right? But you don't think that somebody wouldn't want it to be investigated? Like, hey, check that they're dead. Oh, yeah, no, our doctor says they're dead. Yeah, your doctor How about my doctor here? No. He's not allowed to come and check them out because whatever. And it just makes me remember this thing. There's an event, and I'll have to find it if somebody really wants me. Well, maybe I won't even bring it. Anyways, look, it's easy to fake a story or make up a story or say, well, yeah, I found a coin outside, but nobody's allowed to see the coin that I found. It's magical, but you're not allowed to see it. I was in this cave, and this angel dictated to me these golden tablets. Nobody can see the golden tablets though, because they beamed back up into heaven. Yeah, right. Sure. It's not real, and so no, it wouldn't convince me unless they were to undergo the conditions that would be required for a skeptically minded person to think that this wasn't hogwash. And since the story doesn't have that in it, you will just say, "Well, but you saw it." And I'm like, "I don't know what I saw. It could be fake." You don't think that it could be? Of course it could be fake. So that's the problem, is you have to have the skeptical mindset to be able to see that it could be faked. And if you're unwilling, oh no, but look, they did this, they did that. You don't know that they actually did anything. Well, I saw them. It doesn't matter. Was there an investigation? Was it under controlled conditions? No. Then it could be faked. There's people on YouTube that will point to magic tricks, sleight of hand, illusions, and say they're doing real magic and they're empowered by demons. They're not. That's incoherent to believe. It's an illusion. It's not real, but the people believe it for emotional reasons. And you believe this stuff that you're spewing now, not for any logical, empirical methodology, but more than likely for emotional reasons. This gives you comfort to think that eventually everything will play out like it's supposed to. Yes, it's going to be grim and dark, but it's going to lead to this wonderful, greater good thing, and it's going to be amazing and awesome. But I'm skeptical. And it wouldn't happen. And if I saw it, that wouldn't be enough. It has to be under scientific conditions for me to think that it's even possible. So there's your answer. You're gonna take away something bad from it, I'm sure. Whatever. Okay, let's keep going. I'm almost done.
Would that be enough to persuade you? The same resurrection from the prophets that were preaching about Christ, would that be enough to persuade you then that Jesus is the Son of God?
No.
That through his blood shed on the cross,
no,
you can believe and
nope.
have eternal life?
Why would I have to believe? Couldn't I just, I don't know this for a fact? Couldn't I have overwhelming evidence to convince? It is about faith. It isn't about actual evidence. If I had actual evidence, I'd have to believe. I wouldn't have a choice in the matter. Now, would I accept it is a different question. I don't know, because I don't know what God or Jesus is like. I'd have to talk to them. And so far, even though I've said words at God, I haven't heard anything back. So, I just, they know where I am. They can write me or talk to me whenever they want if they're able or willing to do so. And apparently they don't care. So, or they're unable or unwilling to do so. So I'm not interested. I'm not interested in a one-sided relationship. Anyways, all right, keep going. No is the answer to your question, broadly speaking, though. Okay. Because of everything,
blood,
everything that I said before about it, having to be scientifically proven. Okay, so all you're doing now is preaching, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Skipping.
Could you believe then?
No.
That's my question.
All right. All right.
If you saw a resurrection,
No.
could you believe them?
No, not unless it
And
was.
if your answer is
Okay.
not an emphatic yes, there's something wrong with you.
There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your face. Okay, that's, by the way, that's not. I'm not insulting his face. That's a quote from Red Letter Media. See, it's like. All right. Anyways, whatever. Doesn't matter. Right? There's something wrong with you. You're not skeptical enough. Okay, but you can insult me. So there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. That's nice. Maybe there is something wrong with me. What's your argument? You don't have one. No is the answer, unless it was under scrutiny in scientifically observed, controlled conditions. Then and only then would I go, okay, yeah, this proved itself. This passed the test. James Randi, when he was around and had the JRIF Foundation, they offered $1 million prize for a long, long, long time to anybody that could prove supernatural powers or phenomenal powers or whatever. And nobody did it. Nobody got it. Nobody got even close. Every time they tested the claims, they failed. And people instead made up things like, well, yeah, of course our powers don't work around him because he's so skeptical that it messes our powers up. It's like, come on. Come on. Bull. He had that one psychic Uri girl, whatever the guy's name, Uri Geller, and completely blowed him away. Like, I can move these papers with my mind. Ooh, and the papers on the phone book slowly turned. Ooh, wow, amazing. And he puts like little, packing things, popcorn peanuts on it. And he's like, oh, that makes the lights deflect from the thing and it ruins it and I can't do it now. Yeah, no, because you blew on it. That's what was going on. So, yeah. Debunked him. Straight up. Anyways, so yeah, there's something wrong with you. Right, that's what I was saying. All right, come on. Build suspense. It's plain, right? Oh, it is. Okay.
That's what I said.
All right. That's what you said. That's nice.
So I'd like to have some conversation. I really would.
Well, we'll see.
You saw a resurrection.
Well, we'll see. I left in the thing. I said, hey, you want to come on my channel? We can cover this topic and I'll do a mini interview of you. Let me know. Even though I've covered the topic in this video, I will do it again when I talk to him live. And I'll go over the things that I already went over, but I'll ask him a lot of critical questions. Now, do you think that he will actually come on to talk to me? Let me know in the comments below. And then, if you think that he won't, go over and say, hey, Deconverted Man invited you to come and talk to him. So go do that if you're really interested in having a conversation, and then add as a little bit of a zinger. And if not, there's something wrong with you. And then put a little smiley, winky face or something. Say it in your own words, though. Okay, just do it. Whatever. Do we need to watch the rest of this? Yes. Why? Because if I don't, somebody will be like, "You didn't watch the whole thing." All right.
Would that be enough?
No.
Is a resurrection? Is seeing a resurrection with your own eyes?
Nope.
Convincing enough?
Mm-mm.
We don't have to get into the back and forth about whether this prophecy is going to come to pass or not.
It's not going to.
We're going to see.
No, we won't.
I believe it is my opinion, and also the opinion of many, many people in this world.
That's who
study end times and things like that.
Yeah.
But I believe if you're 40 years old or younger, you are going to be alive when these events take place.
Well, wait a minute. So if you're 41, are you too old? What about 42 or 43? I'm 43. Will I watch this happen, or am I too old now? Because I'm not 40 anymore. God, I can't believe I'm 43. How did that happen? Time! Why? Why? Anyway, sorry. What was I saying? Something. See? My brother's 11 years older than me, so is he too old? How do you know? He won't live long enough. Like, he might live to like 110 for all you know. Maybe technology will come out that will let us live to thousands of years old. Then I guess it could be true. Just like, how do you know any of this? Whatever. Okay. Almost done. I promise we're almost done. Here we go.
These two prophets are sent to the earth.
Yeah.
These two prophets
right.
are God's last. Repent of your sin.
No. Okay. Blah, 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 blah.
And inherit eternal. That's what these prophets are sent for.
Right.
Things happen with your own eyes. Will you remember this video and you know?
I don't know. I might forget the video. I don't know. It's possible. Yeah. Anyway.
That be enough
Woo!
to believe the truth. At what point do you convince your mind and are able and skilled enough to reason what the truth is? Yeah. Would that be enough?
No.
Because unfortunately for some, it still won't be enough.
Yeah.
It's a heart issue.
No, it's a testability issue. It's an issue of having critical evidence, not just seeing something. Because seeing it isn't enough. It's too extraordinary. And I'm going to think that it's natural because there's no evidence that anything not natural has ever happened. And if it did happen, how would you know? And there's so many problems. But it's not a heart issue. My heart's an organ. It's a brain issue, if anything. But I'm skeptically minded, and you're not. And that's the issue. Not the other way around. It's your burden of proof, not mine. Anyways, are we done yet? No.
That's a soul issue.
Whatever. There's prove that there's a soul.
It's not who you are.
What?
If I chop off my arm,
yeah,
my arm is dead. I still live. Why?
Yeah.
Because I am not my arm.
Well, no, you're your brain.
You have a soul that is inside of this body.
Prove it. Show me.
I didn't mean to get into all that.
Yeah.
Please join me in the comments.
I did. It's right there. There it is.
Would you believe?
No.
Jesus rose.
Stop asking the same question.
If you saw a resurrection with
Come on. If you saw whatever that Muhammad blah 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 did blah whatever that is, I don't know enough about Islam. Would that make you believe? Same, yeah.
Would that be enough?
No.
That's my question.
No.
I want to see who answers the question, regardless of how full as you can. Answer the question. Let's have a dialogue. Let's love you in the Lord.
All right. He loves us in the Lord. That's nice. Whatever. All right, there you go. Whatever. It's a thing I did. So, like, comment, subscribe, blah blah blah, that stuff that you're supposed to do. And hey, if you want, encourage this guy to talk to me. Let's see if he wants to have an actual conversation. So later on, I should be like, you should reply to my comment, like, hey, Deconverted Man, I saw your video. I want this guy to talk to you. We could email him. We could email him and do that. I don't know. Should we email him and do that? We could do that. Yeah, whatever. I think I'll email him. And I'll be like, hey, do the blah, blah, blah. And that's all I'll say. And then that was the thing. What was the thing I said I was going to put in the description earlier? Oh, I said I was going to put something in the description. Now I don't remember what it was. Uh-oh. Well, you know what? I don't remember. So I'm blaming you. Yes, you that are still listening. Tell me what I was supposed to put in the description when you listen to this video of. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, and then I'll put it in the description, and we'll pretend that this part didn't happen. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, everybody. Finn. All right, hit the button. Oh yeah.